Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
To welcome you to Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Ray Samich, and I'd love to introduce you to my longtime radio co-host and colleague, and my dear friend and spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. And we have people joining us in so many different ways on YouTube, and our streaming, on radio live here in the Cleveland, Ohio area. And we really appreciate you being with us. For those of you that are wanting to be part of our Zoom audience, that's a real special opportunity to interact with us. We've been talking with our Zoom guests here before, during, and after the show. If you'd like to be a part of that, check out our YouTube channel. It's Google Stress-Free Living Radio on our YouTube channel, Stress-Free Living Radio. And not only will you find there a whole vast library of past shows that you can download, listen to, but also you'll find our Zoom link at that site. Ratanjit, I want to talk about fear today. And the title of the show is Can Fear Kill? And I know that's a strong choice of words, but I am running into so many people today that live in a state of fear, whether it's because they're older and they're thinking that the end is near, and there's an end for all of us on this earth, but that makes them fearful. They're fearful of what they're hearing every day in the news. There's so much disconcerting news that is all around us. News about wars and about politics and about violence and illness. We just came through the pandemic that was bad enough. It was supposed to even be worse, but it was still bad enough in terms of how it affected everybody. There's just so many things that we live in fear of today. The job market is so crazy today that people are just changing. There was the mass exodus of people leaving their jobs, and they're still not happy. I think we gave a statistic on that a few weeks ago, with over 2/3 of people that are employed don't want to be there. They want to find a different job. They're looking for a different job. Everybody is discontent. They're stressed, and much of it relates to fear. So would it help or would it hurt if we knew how it is affecting us? If we really stopped to think how living in this state of fear and high stress and anxiety is really impacting us and impacting the choices we make in our life, and even impacting us in terms of our physical body. I have a little statistic, but I wanted just to hear your input based on the questions I've asked.
The answer to the question is, can fear kill you? Answer is yes. What happens is, scientifically, when fear becomes so dominant, our human body releases certain hormones, certain chemicals. One of them is adrenaline, and that is very toxic to our heart, to our lungs, to our kidneys, to our liver. And it makes calcium available to our heart, and the heart starts vibrating very fast. And there is a medical term which is called ventricular fibrillation. And that eventually, if that cannot be stopped, that can be stopped, but if it is not stopped, it will kill you. So fear can actually kill you, or fear can kill you slowly. There are so many people, fear can kill us in many other ways. It can kill our desire, it can kill our happiness, it can kill our incentive, it can kill our desire to it can reduce our appetite. It can have so many other effects if it is not immediately kill you from this release of the hormones. So
So,
now that
so,
is the
so
answer
it,
to your
yeah.
question.
So I mean, we know then, without question, living in a state of fear is not good for us. And there's one other statistic I'll throw in the mix here, and this was studied just recently in a magazine called Cell Metabolism, which is obviously a very intense health medical journal. And it's found that biological age increases with stress and fear. Experts say exposure to these can cause inflammation and damage to the DNA in our cells, which in turn accelerates aging. So the one thing that we really don't want to do, we have to face it, we do age. That's the normal part of life, but we don't want to do anything that accelerates it. And yet fear will accelerate our aging. So all of the things that happen to us as we get older will happen to us sooner. So the point of all of this is if we know it is so bad, scientifically proven, and plus you mentioned, everything else that goes with it, our mindset, our lack of appreciation for life, our lack of enjoyment because we always have fear on our mind, fear of something. Why do we do it? Why do we allow that to be such a predominant part of our life?
It's not a question of whether we live in this human body mode. In our mind, the signal we send is the only thing we have is this body, according to what our knowledge, our whole living habits, what we are told, what our education tell us, what our parents tell us. So this is life. So when this is finished, then what? So you are done. So basically, all our enjoyment, all our basic uh, experience of life happens when we are alive. And naturally, this human body, as we mentioned in many of our shows, knows that it is going to one day die. It is forever implanted in fear. So it's looking for listening to situations and feeling. All the five senses are attentive to anything which is dangerous, which is going to destroy it. So it is constantly conscious of this awareness. So it uh, as a constant uh, when the situation becomes obvious to this human body through the five senses, that this thing is going to kill me. So then the fear is higher. We live in the awareness of this. There is a subliminal fear, there is subconscious fear, there is conscious fear. And conscious fear gives you all these accelerates all these hormones which are going to damage your human body system. So that does mean that when there is fire, you are going to burn, you have to go away from it. Of course, you have to save yourself. We are not saying that fear is bad or good. Fear is awareness which is conveyed to this body by our five senses that this particular situation is going to destroy you and you save yourself. So we allow whatever means available to us to implement to get away from that situation or to save ourselves. And when we are caught in a situation when we are not able to save ourselves, then this fear gets totally out of hand, and fear itself can kill you.
See, I mean, I get you. I understand what you're saying. The idea of fear, the reason that that's part of our human body is to protect us. So we should be fearful of a fire because it could kill us. We should be fearful of a wild animal. If we're out hiking or camping and a big black bear comes over to us and growls, we should be afraid and we should run away. I mean, those are logical situations where fear is relevant. What I think has happened, though, is that we have become fearful of everything. We are not only fearing death, which is understandable for the people that are getting sick or getting older or whatever, and understand that my days are, there's a limit on my days on this earth. It's understandable to have that fear. Maybe that's more predominant for some people than it should be, like they live in that state, which is sad. But I'm also talking about all the other fears. I'm talking about because of all the bad news around us, because of our disappointment in achieving what we thought we would do or thought we would be, and then we didn't get there. And now we're starting to wonder if we'll ever get there. And our choices that we made that didn't end up being as good as we thought they were going to be. So we're stuck perhaps in a marriage that was less than we wanted, or in a job that is less than we wanted. And the disappointment, I think, easily becomes fear because we realize that our choices are limited. And now we're fearful that we won't have the joy that we thought we'd have, or the contentment that we thought we'd have, or the financial success we thought we'd have. There's just so many reasons it seems that I am running into people that if you really talk with them, they're unhappy. And when you really have a further conversation, fear has a play in it. They're not going to have the time to get what they want. They're not going to have the opportunities to be all they could be. They're not going to have the fulfillment of life that they expected, and that becomes a fear. So
You know,
it's
fear
deeper even than what I think you're saying.
fear becomes an amazing opportunity. Look at all our development of our society. When we were living in jungles and hunting, and we were afraid of dying, so we built these houses and these communities, and they are much more safer. And we developed uh, arms where we can destroy the wild animals, or something we can protect ourselves. So
Right.
we are blessed with this amazing capability, which is an amazing creativity to solve, to visualize, to imagine, and create something new. So all the everything begins with difficulty, with the fear that this is not good for us. I have to change it, and this is how I'm going to change it. This is how I can protect myself. So your human mind helps you those situations. But when you become completely convinced that the situation is hopeless, whether it is environment, or whether it is political situation, whether it is social situation, or if it is personal situation, your marriage, your relationships and all that. Once you feel that you cannot change it, you cannot solve it, it becomes it gets converted into a, a fear or consistent problem, which is going to remain in your mind, and it can accelerate the wrong chemicals in your body to create stress, worries, anxiety, and fear. All these things can happen. So mindset should be that you should never give up. Mindset should be there is a problem, there is a solution, although I cannot see it, but there is one. So that converts into a hope and creative energy, and you are now looking for solution rather than getting totally affected by this fear and situation. And so basically, to counter this situation, you have to develop a mindset of consistent hope and consistent finding the solution. Right?
Yeah, and that's where I want to go today to talk about how we can change that mindset. But I think since we've all got this basic fear right out of the block, knowing that we're going to die, I mean, that's just part of our human structure. Our human paradigm says that we are born and we're going to die from this earth. Our body will die. That already is a bit of the fear that I think is in every single person. Maybe not. Maybe that's a bad statement. Most people. I've met some people that have totally no fear of death, including you. Okay, you have no fear of death whatsoever. My mother, God rest her soul, never had a fear of death. She was just totally ready whenever it's time, it's time. There's a few people like that, but the great majority of people have a thought in their mind that says, for whatever reason, I don't want to leave. And so there's a fear of death. We've always had that. That's just a part of our structure. What's happened on top of that, though, it just seems that there's today more than ever so many things to be afraid of. And part of it is because of the onslaught of news. I mean, we're just being barraged constantly on TV and internet and radio and phones and computers, and we're just being barraged with what apparently is hopeless situations, bad news, and the legitimate rising of violence, the rising of crime against people and against our homes. You mentioned we build our homes to protect us from the wild animals, but our homes today are protecting us hopefully from violence and insanity of people that are on drugs and all other reasons why they're breaking into homes and things. There just seems to be so many things today to be fearful of, more than just our human form, but not reaching our goals, not protecting our family, not being able to fulfill the life that we envision to have. So you mentioned changing our mindset, but gosh, that's not easy to do, Ratanjit. It's if there was one thing we were afraid of, we could talk ourselves out of it. Maybe if there were two or three things we're afraid of, we could say, well, that doesn't affect me and I can get by. But when it seems like we are totally not happy with with our life, not happy with our job, not happy with our relationships, not happy with the world around us, not happy with the options for change, and now we become afraid that we're never going to live the life that we want. And that's why suicides continue to grow. I mean, it just continues to grow in every age group. So let's take a break. I know I've been very negative here so far. I don't mean to be that way. I'm just trying to be realistic so that we can set a platform for hopefully you to give us the hope and tell us how we can change our mindset and overcome the fears that, as we've just talked about, actually medically proven can kill us. We'll be back. This is Stress Free Living. Okay, don't mean to be a Debbie Downer here today. I guess I really am. So we'll improve that hopefully in the next part of the show. Anyone have a thought?
I think it's a very interesting conversation. And there was a time when growing up in a community that was riddled with violence, I didn't think I would live to 25. I just assumed that something terrible would happen. And a professional who was training me in the work environment, she was teaching me about retirement planning. And I said, I don't have to worry about that because I'll probably be dead by the time I'm 25. And she looked at me, a stern look on her face, and said, don't ever say that again. You create when you. So what shifted my perspective from the fear was developing my faith. So that's what comes up for me here in this conversation. Yeah.
Thank you, Kim. Thank God you're here. We're so glad. Rakesh?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you? Well, I mean, I'm just, the caption is that will fear kill us? Well, that is the established fact, so that's not, the question should be in my mind, why we are more fearful than we have been in our history.
Yes.
And right, that is the main question here.
Yes.
And so I think, the two words come to my mind is that the way we live these days, there are two themes which are, omnipresent, which one is competitive instead of supportive, and the other is predatory. We have become animals, in my opinion, psychologically speaking. We have that mindset that let me get over that person.
We are back on Stress Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I'm Ray Samich, and our co-host and my dear friend is Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, we had some interesting quick conversations here during the break with our guests, and they always add so much to the show. So glad that they are with us. I'm actually going to go along the lines with a couple of the things that they just shared with us. One is faith, and that's such a, you talked hope, and I definitely want to get into hope, but there's a lot of times when I have to come through a situation that seems hopeless and just say you have to have faith. You just have to believe that there is a plan, and there is, disregarding your own personal expectations, disregarding what we think we want to happen, because we really don't know what is best. We think we do, but we don't. Just have faith that things will get better, that things will work out. I say that because I think it is critically important, but I also know statistically that we are at one of the lowest ebbs in history of actually practicing faith. Relative to organized religion, it is at an incredibly low level of people that are part of an organized religion and participating in that. So is that another piece of this? Is that another reason why we are more fearful than ever, because we also have less faith than ever?
To dissect this systematically, there are two reasons for us to have fear. One is that I'm going to die. Anything which is visible to me, whether it is a disease or aging or whatever it is, which is going to remind me of my death. I'm going to be fearful. Other is other problems. Now let's deal with the death. So that once we understand, comprehend who we truly are, we are living in this human body as the divine universal force, which is equivalent to what, if you are religious, you can call it a presence of divine power. And that is going to live. So it's like we are sent on this earth and we are given this spacesuit as a human body to operate from day to day. And human body has a limited time and it's going to expire and you will be called back. So within this framework, many things will happen. So your question is, why are you sent here? Are you sent here to basically drink and be merry and have fun? Or you are sent here to make a difference, to add value, to solve problems, to make this place a better place than when you arrived here? And so this clear understanding of, look, I'm going to go back to my home. I'm not going to die. This human body would remain here. Human body was made of the elements of this earth, and they will dissolve back into these elements. So the death is of the human body. So it eliminates the death of fear, and the fear of death. And once that thing is taken care of, now the other things, other problems, which are whether they are shortening the life of my stay here, and I need to get the fullest impact of my being here. So I have to only die because of aging rather than at the age of 30 or 50 or 60. So if something is diminishing my life, so I have to find a solution. So that is why we are doing research and we are finding solution to problems. And basically, we have now extended the life of the human body. Human body, we have started to live higher. It used to be 30, 40 years lifespan. And now it is close to 80. And
Right.
so it can be extended to more than 100. And it is going to give us more time to make a difference. But other problems, they are divided into two categories. One, you can see the solution. You can find a problem, you can solve the problem. It gives you a inner satisfaction. It gives you inner joy when you solve the problem. So in order to experience the inner joy, you have to have problems, because it is only by solving those problems you have that satisfaction. So the problems are going to be there. Some are visible. Some you have to imagine those, something which is not visible problem, but can be made into a better things. So you are constantly utilizing your skills, you are learning more skills, you are understanding more elements which you can control or you can make a difference, and you becoming more equipped to handle and solve those problems. So that is where continuous education and learning comes into play. So anytime when you are learning and when you are getting more knowledge, it gives you inner joy. So this human body is constructed in a way that anything which gives you inner joy, you should understand that is, we are going in the right direction. When it diminishes the joy, you are going in the wrong direction. So these are the things which you should implement in our day-to-day life. So, and when we are learning something new, when we are solving some problem, when we making a difference, it 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 gives you inner boost. You feel better about yourself. And of course, there is other side of it. When you give good food and you implement things which are satisfying the need of your five senses, we call it a pleasure. But pleasure has limited time. Not that you should not find time to enjoy these five senses pleasure, but when you become totally inundated by these five senses pleasure, they become addictive. You become slave of those things. So instead of making yourself slave of those things, you have to be aware that, yeah, you should enjoy these five senses based experiences, but do not become slave of that. The real thing which gives you long-term pleasures are solving these problems, finding a solution. Now, there is another problem which your mind conceives that is impossible to solve. And that many times give you a fear and a hopeless situation, and you become victim of that. Fundamentally, there is no such thing. You may not be able to see the solution right now, but there is a solution. And once you understand that you constantly looking for different directions, different possible ways, acquiring different knowledge, additional knowledge to understand how do you solve that problem. It gives you a higher challenge. The joy associated with something which appears to be hopeless, and when you find the solution, is much higher. So ultimately, that is how you should handle it. The fear, apparent fear, which is of two types, which is immediate harm you have to protect yourself. And there's a long-term fear, which is a hidden fear, which can be solved with your creativity, with your imagination, with your knowledge, with your technology, right?
You said so much there again. Thank you. It was so good. But you did at the very end get back around to the question that I asked you a few minutes ago, because you said there is going to be a solution. You may not see it, you may not be aware of it for a long time, but it's going to come. I want to go back to that word faith again that I had asked you about, because it come down to that in your dissertation there. If I am in a apparently hopeless situation, if I look out and I see the situation as it is, and I go through the details of it, and I just say, there's no way out of this. This is a problem that has no solution. The fear that will overtake me will fulfill that prophecy. I mean, at that point, if I've given up, if I don't even try to think of a solution, don't look for a door to get out of a room, then I'm never going to find it, because fear has overtaken me. It's paralyzed me. The idea of having faith, whether it's faith in a divine power, faith in destiny, faith in my abilities to overcome the most difficult situation. Some kind of faith element, I think, has to be there, doesn't it? Don't we have to have some, just maybe it isn't logical, maybe you can't prove it, but you just have to allow that to be part of you to say, there is going to be a solution. There is a plan here that is going to be fulfilled. To me, it seems like faith is one of the few things that can overcome fear.
You know, the thing is this, many of the scientists are trying to develop some particular solution to a scientific problem. And they utilize all the knowledge they have and whatever data is available. It looks impossible. And ultimately, when you exhaust your education, your knowledge, and all the research available to you, everything a human being knows, then you go deep inside, and there is a power within you which you activate, which you connect to, or you can call it God if you are a religious person. And that power can give you an idea or a solution which is ultimately able to solve that problem. And so ultimately, we talk about in this show, you should focus on consistently making your best better. You only reach your best when you honestly utilize all your knowledge, all your know-how, all your resources, everything to produce best. So when you have already produced the best, what else is there within your arsenal to make that best better? You have to reach inside. You have to reach the divine power within you to make your best better. It's the same thing when you have a problem which you cannot find a solution by conventional means. You have to reach inside to find, because there is a solution. And you have to find something, and which is always the case. So many technologies, so many new things which have been developed, which we could never comprehend. We could never believe that such a thing can happen. You know, I wanted to give an example, but before
No,
I do that,
go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead, Pat. Continue.
you know, when we were reading physics, and there was a law of energy that you cannot produce more energy than what you have already put into it. The energy you produce is always less than what you have. So now, last year, we had a breakthrough, and we had the same fusion of atomic, and it is producing more energy than it has produced. It has utilized. So with that, we are, if that is going to develop into a technology, we will be able to generate power and energy much cheaper than anything we ever know. And suddenly we have solved the problem of energy. And again, that energy can be utilized in so many ways. If it is water shortage, we can take the water from ocean and use electricity to create fresh water. But the electricity is too expensive now to do that. But this new technology, we will be able to do that. This was totally incomprehensible by
Right.
scientific thoughts and methods. And so
No, but
always we have, so those kind of hopes are around us. If we get involved in these silly little things, what our Communist Party said, what our president said, what our political party said, what is all these things, and they would be short-term appearance. They are always going to change. Remember, if there is an evil human being present on this earth, you have to remember they have only limited time. Every one of us is going to eventually die and go away. So it doesn't matter what the situation is today, it is always going to change. And if we have some positive mindsets on this earth, they can always affect that change. They can make it a better change. And it only takes a few people to make that happen, right?
so many comments I can make on that, and I just make a couple before we go to our break. I get inspired and I feel much more positive when I listen to you, because you bring up all of these ideas that are positive, that are solutions. I think it's a little bit tougher today to do all of those things. There's that song, the sun will come out tomorrow. We're not sure at this point if the sun will come out tomorrow. We've been bombarded by negativity, and the news. You just said a great story there with the energy, because for the first time ever, that's not dwindling our resources. We actually have to have the ability to be self-sustaining, and the resources won't go away. They'll actually be increased on an ongoing basis. So that's a phenomenal story, but there don't seem to be that many stories like that around us. Most of the stories are not going in the direction that we want, and they're negative. And so this mindset that you alluded to early on in the show, we really need to understand when we come back how to have that mindset. Is it faith, hope, and love? Those three virtues that we've all heard over and over. Is it understanding that there's nothing to be afraid of because we're going to live forever as a spiritual being? What is that combination of aspects that we can have not only in our brain, but in our heart and in our soul, that'll allow us to overcome the fears? I need to kind of capsulize that when we come back in our last segment of today's show. We're so glad you're with us. This is Stress Free Living. We'll be back in a moment. All right, everybody. You now have a very short 90 seconds if you'd like to give us your thoughts.
Sahil, you have anything to say? Is our youngster, the new blood?
Hi, Dada.
Hi.
I do have a question, but I think I'll save it for the end, because I think I'm going to go past the 90-second mark, and I'd hate to interrupt the flow of Ray. So,
Okay. Are you making any sense?
yes, absolutely. I think some of the points you've made regarding never giving up, and like the inner resilience that you need to show in moments where you're like pushed on the corner. So I think, yeah, those points are really valuable, and I'm keen to listen more.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rakesh, we cut you off last time because I had to go to the show. We have again in about 30 seconds if you like.
No problem. It seems like, everything goes back to spirituality, having some kind of faith that gives us the inner strength, which is so critical for our survival.
You were making 2 points earlier. The first one was competition. You were saying that we're not supportive or competitive. What was the second one you were making? That's what you were saying. cut you off.
Yeah, I use the word predatory.
Okay.
Right. That's the mentality that it seems like it has been cultivated, in modern times.
Okay. I think I'm going to work that in here when we come back. Very good. Monitoring here nope, we're back. This is Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us here today. Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Samich, talking today about fear. And the question was, can fear kill us? And we very quickly answered, yes, it can. Both from a medical health standpoint, it can kill us, but also it can kill our spirit. It can kill the drive that we have to be all that we can be in whatever years we are on this earth. Ratanjit, we want to kind of wrap this up and give some people some guidelines. But one of the thoughts from one of our Zoom guests talked about the fact that we've changed as a society, in his opinion, and I think there's some support for this, that we are self-centered more than ever. And in the process of being self-centered, we are critical of others. We are always competing with others. We are predatory in terms of protecting our possessions, our own life, maybe our own family, and the people that we care about. So we are, in a different mindset. We're not collaborative at all. It's the total absence of oneness. It's like I'm only in it for myself, and I'm protecting myself. And if anybody gets in my way, or if I see anybody that could potentially affect me, I'm going to go and get rid of them, because I am going to be protective of myself. The ironic part of that is, to me, is that I think that's driven by fear. I think fear still comes back to that, because if we didn't have this fear of our own life existence, if we didn't have the fear of people hurting us, I think I would be much more open-minded to everybody playing nice in the sandbox together. So it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Does the fear create then these terrible actions, these terrible attitudes, which then creates more fear?
The good news is that we have limited life. This mindset of people who have competition and me first and all that eventually going to disappear. What we have to do as a human race is prepare a younger generation who is much more informed about who they are. The psychologists tell us that human mind is your basic character is formed at the age of 6. So in the early stage, what we are doing right now, we are telling them to compete, get an A. You are this. You are separating them. You are putting a competition in them. You are putting what is in it for me in them. So the next generation, we have to teach them self-knowledge, who they are. They are not the human body. Once we give them this understanding of who they are, they become fearless, because they know that they are here on this earth only on a very short trip to make a difference. And this mindset growing up will make them better students, because they want to gather as many tools, as many knowledge to make a difference. Right now, the knowledge is to get a new job, to get a better job, more paying job. You are not running after understanding things. You are going after just enough knowledge so that you can get a job. So this mindset has to be changed, or human race will have the same question again and again and again. We cannot change. What happens is we become so inculcated in our habits. So all the knowledge, all the wisdom doesn't get affected, get embedded in us because our habits overpower us. So we can have the great knowledge, we can talk about the great knowledge, we can lecture about it, we can write books about it, but we will only live our habits. Our habits are implanted in fear. Our habits are implanted in this five senses of the human body. Our habits are not implanted in who we are, the soul which enlivens this human body. So it is very important to give this understanding and this education to the younger generation so our human society can change, can evolve, or else doesn't matter how much money we have, doesn't matter how many toys we have, we are always going to compete and make each other miserable rather than comfort and make everyone as our true partner, right?
Ratanjit, no better, no smarter thing to do. That's the best advice in the world, to start this new generation with that understanding so that the world can change with that mindset and that reality. But before we can teach people, before we can tell our kids, you've said many times before, our kids don't do what we say, they do what they see us do. That's what we're really teaching them, is our actions. So for me to tell my kids, don't be afraid, and you're a spiritual being having a human experience, and all of these other vitally true things, but for me to share that without really believing it isn't going to come across as being credible. So help us in the last couple of minutes here. Is it faith and hope that we have to have the mindset of faith and hope? There's a reason, there's a plan, it'll come through. Just know it, keep going through the low spots. What is your strategy that will help us to overcome the fear?
I'm going to sound like a broken record. We have to change our habits. We have to inculcate in us habit of living in oneness, habit of thinking in the spiritual mode. So that can only happen when we do this exercise of looking in the mirror every morning and looking into the eyes and seeing the power which enlivening this human body and giving all our problem to that spiritual being present in us. And as a consequence, sooner or later, a solution would pop up in our own head. And we begin to see, once we see ourselves as the spiritual being, not the human body, we begin to see others as well as the spiritual being rather than a human body. And instead of judging them on the false knowledge and habits they have acquired, we must respect that spiritual being present in them. And suddenly, love and compassion would flow, and we will have a disagreement even with people who we consider as our enemies, and we begin to see the spiritual being in them. And this habit is going to give us additional hope, additional creativity, additional things to solve the problem. And this is going to be the example for our younger generation. Right?
We'll let that be your last word, our last word here today for this show. We want to thank you, Ratanjit, as always, and thank our Zoom guests and all of our listeners, viewers, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that we've added value to your life. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon. All right. I want to let everybody know that I need to get away. I've got 21 people going to be in my house in 30 minutes. And so I need to make a quick getaway, but I thank you all for being with us here today. And I am going to make Ratanjit the host. And I know this didn't work last time, but I think I know what I did. So Ratanjit, I'm going to know if this works because you are now the message. So now when I leave, it just allows me to leave and not everybody else. So I'm saying goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much. And we will see you all next week.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Good luck.
Okay, Sahil, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Should I go ask my question, or should I wait for?
Go ahead.
Right. Okay. So I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to take you back to a personal instance in your past regarding this question. It revolves around the time around your company Polycarb, and when your associates informed you that you're gonna eventually have to file for bankruptcy, and eventually you were able to marvelously turn around the whole situation. So what I wanted to ask was, how did you deal with the fear of failure at that exact moment and that period of time when your associates and your accountants are telling you that you're probably going to have to file for bankruptcy? So how did you deal with the fear of failure at that time?
You know, what happened is when my accountant and my attorneys informed me that this company has no money and basically you are bankrupt, but they said, don't worry, it's a common procedure. Many businesses go through that, and they gave me example of many people who filed for bankruptcy, and now they are driving Rolls Royce and they have mansions, and so. But it didn't sit very well with me. So I came home, and it was a Saturday, and I was devastated because that was the first time when I came to US. Before that, as a child, I have this this feeling, this desire to start a business.
Correct.
And so I started a business and used the common methods and hired the most experienced people and everything. Did it the right way, but still I was facing the bankruptcy. So suddenly, Saturday afternoon, I was sitting in the library, completely devastated. First time I was asking this question, why did I start this business? So I could not find the answer. It was not because of the money I wanted to make. It was not because of the boss I wanted to be, or it was none of those typical things. So suddenly at that time, I opened a book and I saw this quote from Albert Einstein. And this quote says, a person experiences something separated from the rest. And then he says, it's like an optical illusion of consciousness. And therefore, our task must be to free ourselves from this self imposed prison by finding through compassion the reality of oneness. Although
Wow.
my mother used to talk about it, and I did a lot of studies on oneness, but it remains an intellectual knowledge. It never sunk inside me. And finally, hearing from my mentor, like Albert Einstein, it suddenly become a reality to me. So my
Correct.
mission became to find out whether this procedure or this mindset of oneness works in the business. So then I went to work Monday and had my attorney and accountant wanted me to file for bankruptcy. They had prepared all the papers and all that. I said, no more bankruptcy. So I called a meeting, and when I told them the condition of the company, 80% of the employee walked out on me.
Oh, geez.
And rest 20%, I sat down with them and convinced them to leave. Because I knew this oneness paradigm cannot be implemented into people who already have the mindset which is different. They work for
Correct.
different companies. So I went to the universities and colleges and hired the fresh graduates, some PhDs, some MBAs, and these people. And my conditions were there were not going to be any titles, and they should not use their degrees. They should be able to frame their degrees and diplomas in a nice frame and send it to their mother, because if they accept to be student again, they cannot work here. And since they are student, they have to work in every department of this company till they find the solution, the understanding of each of the working of the department. And that's how we restarted the company. And every Saturday was a working day. And every Saturday, we did not talk about the product or methods or anything. We talked about comprehending what is oneness, how to
Wow.
implement that oneness. And eventually we became very successful, and the company was acquired by Dow Chemical.
Correct. Yes. An amazing journey after that. But that's really insightful, because I could see how you could interlink the ideas of, you started using an approach of how you can use oneness, and then obviously you could tap into your own resilience and adopt this new fresh approach with new employees and fresh young minds, and you're able to completely transform the situation. So pretty interesting.
There was another thing which was important, that any problem any of these youngsters would encounter, notice a problem, they become CEO of that problem.
Okay.
And although the whole team would help them, but whether it is financial problem or it is technical problem or it is production problem, regardless of their degree or their experience, they have to handle it. So that
Correct.
brought tremendous experience and learning into them.
Right. I mean, it sounds like a very marvelous interdisciplinary approach. Like, you could enter the company as like a mechanical engineer, but you could leave as a sales executive, a business expert, and everything, because you'd have an experience of all other departments. So it's an amazing interdisciplinary approach.
Basically, they asked me, why are you doing that? So I said, we are training all of you to be the CEOs of the company, not the employees of the company. So all the CEOs working together.
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Thank you so much. that answers my question.
Any
That
other
is
question? Any
definitely a very inspiring, experience that you took the company through, and it would have required a lot of, given all the financial odds, I'm assuming at the time that were
Yes.
leading to a possibility of bankruptcy.
Yes.
It's very inspiring. And I completely believe in what you just said, which is have your employees or your members of your staff go through all of the functions so they understand truly what the business is and they can be the
Yes.
CEOs.
Yes.
So my quick question on that. So how long did it take for you to go from taking all your employees out, 80% plus the 20%, restaffing it back and getting back on the company on its feet?
Uh, within a period of a month, we hired this young team, and fortunately, I still had orders. As company was products were uh, very successful, and most of these people who were working before, they were basically what is in it for me mindset. They were I don't have the right car, I don't have the right brochure, I don't have the right office. I constantly finding fault with things rather than focusing on how to add value.
Yeah, and I think bringing in new minds, new fresh blood from the campuses also probably created more, how should I say, outside in view of what can be done and what can be done better, and new ideas must have come in.
Yeah, we were at the end of the day, we would ask the team about the mistakes they made. And we always learned from the mistakes they made. So our whole, and slowly we developed our operating principles and operating values based on oneness, and everybody would carry those values, and we would have in any problem the company would confront, we will have a debate and come up with a solution, and then we call our boss, which are our operating principles, and the solution, if it did not meet all the criteria of these operating values, we will change that. So it many times it ends up costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we end up eventually creating tremendous positive impact.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kim, you have any other question?
Well, I have a suggestion and a request.
Yes.
It's such a you experience. I recall listening to your story when I first met you at your house. You may not recall that, but I do recall that very vividly. And maybe you should do a show. Maybe you have done it already, but about how to hire good people, good employees, because I have a small company. I'm a psychiatrist, just to remind in case you forgot. So
You don't, instead of hiring good people,
yeah.
You get the goodness out of people.
Okay. So maybe you should do a talk on that.
You cannot hire good people.
Okay.
They're all good people.
Okay.
When we focus on getting the goodness out of them, then, in a lawn, when whatever portion of the lawn you water, it grows. Whatever you don't water, it doesn't grow. So lot of the time we catch people doing things wrong. So we are watering the wrong lawn. We should catch them doing things right.
Okay.
And that would encourage them to do more of those things.
Okay, that's a very profound statement. I like it. We should catch them doing the right thing. Okay. Um,
And
I mean,
a
that's very
leader,
helpful.
if you want to be a leader, you always take the blame and give the credit.
Absolutely.
All the problems which are happening in the company are due to you, not because of the people. So everybody who makes the problem knows that they have committed because of that. When you take the blame, they have much higher respect for you.
Yes. Take the bullet every time.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do understand the idea of buck stops here, you know, because, I mean,
No, it's different than buck stops here.
okay.
It's buck stops here is considered that you make all the decisions.
But you're also responsible for it.
Bucks.
It means that too.
Yeah, but that's not how they consider it. Yeah,
Okay.
it can be construed that.
No, it's I would really have you done a show on this topic before?
Probably what you can suggest, send me a few topics which you want to
Okay,
do.
let me do
Same-
that. Yeah, I will definitely do that. I think, I mean,
Same thing with Sudeep. You can send us some topics. Kim, you can
Yes.
send us some topics, and Sahil, you can send us some topics which you would like to see.
Actually, Virji, I would, from very selfish reasons, I would love for you to have a show to talk about your life experiences. We all have kids. I would love to have my kids join that and hear about your story, hear about, you know, how you went about doing stuff. You just talked about how you fired 100% of the people, brought new people in, and rejuvenated the company and whatnot. I think that's a very inspiring story. I mean, would love to have you talk through your experiences. And I know Sahil, I'm assuming you're very young in your career as well. It'll be great. It'll be great learning.
Yes, I'm only 20. I'm in the second day of engineering, so I'm
Oh,
quite young.
there you go. Okay, so you have not started working. So it's a good. I think um, they'll be great. I mean, we as parents say a lot of things to our children, but I think you have the experience that could help them in a big way as well.
Yeah, yeah. Most of our list, put a topic in that sense, and so I can add some more stories in that topic.
I will do that. I will do that. Thank
I'll
you.
do that too. I'm going to suggest few topics that will give you an opportunity to, share your experience and wisdom. I think it's so critical. I struggle a lot with our employees. I'll be honest, and so that could be a very helpful thing to listen to.
Okay.
I just want to add, I appreciate always hearing the show and participating. As a leader, when you talk about oneness, I aspire to be a mirror that others can look into to see how great they are. And I recognize when I'm leading from a platform of fear, there is no love present. And there really isn't an opportunity because I'm afraid and I'm trying to prevent something from happening, or, I'm looking for what's wrong. But when I take it all I take responsibility as a leader, then it's almost like they work harder for me because they appreciate my leadership. And I give grace to those that least deserve it. Like the mistake to me is a growth opportunity. And when I come from that perspective, I get more out of it that is positive. I just want to add that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.